At my father's funeral, Deacon indulged his first love in setting up a gambling game. A group of people were laughing and joking, betting that I would take the opportunity to play the victim and that Deacon wouldn't be able to get rid of me. At that moment, my heart sank into despair. I silently took off all the valuable things on me, called over the waiter beside me and said, "Here's a chance to get rich. Do you want it? Go and bet that Serena is tired of playing and intends to change to another lapdog." The waiter won the bet. After dividing the money, I neatly disappeared from Deacon's life. At first, Deacon didn't take it seriously. She's bankrupt. Her father's dead. And without anyone to back her up, she won't be able to stay aloof for long. Day after day passed, and when 3 months had gone by and there was still no news of me, Deacon panicked. He found me at a banquet. First, he instigated others to humiliate me. And then he came forward to coax me, "Serena, just admit defeat, and I'll still protect you." When I was all alone and helpless, the waiter slowly raised his glass towards me at the host's seat. "Thanks to you, I've really made a fortune. Do you want a chance to bully others with power?" At the condolence banquet after the funeral, Deacon's stepsister and first love showed up uninvited. She was wearing a bright red halter dress and opened a gambling game at Deacon's table with a flamboyant smile. "Come on. It's been a long time since we played. Let's have a bet. Serena, that annoying girl, has just lost her father. She'll definitely take the opportunity to play the victim. Let's bet on whether my brother can get rid of her or not." The atmosphere was lively, and many people placed their bets. And I was Serena. At that time, I had just settled the bill for the banquet and came back to get my coat. The absurd scene made me tremble uncontrollably. I leaned against the pillar and subconsciously looked for Deacon's figure. However, the man who had been my childhood sweetheart was now staring at his stepsister with great interest, allowing all this unreasonable and absurd stuff to happen. He said, "She's just a mangy dog. Whether I can get rid of her or not depends on what chips you're willing to offer." While all blushed under his straightforward gaze. But she still pretended to be stupid and put her halter dress up as a bet. "The dress just arrived today. I'll bet it with you too." "How stingy. As if you could wear it even if I bet it to you." The ambiguous teasing laughter around became even more unrestrained. "Oh, our young master Deacon can't wear it, but he can take it off." The vulgar and lewd laughter echoed throughout the hall of the condolence banquet. Deacon's assistant whispered a reminder. "President Deacon, don't go too far. It won't be easy to deal with if Serena finds out." Deacon frowned unhappily, looking so cold as if I had never known him before. "She's bankrupt. Her father's dead. I know that. She'll just pretend not to know." I think my feelings for Deacon were completely buried at that moment. In just an instant, I knew what I should do. I suppressed my surging emotions, silently took off all the valuable things on me, and stopped the waiter wearing a baseball cap beside me. "There's a chance to get rich. Do you want it? Go to that table over there and bet that Serena is tired of playing and intends to change to another dog." Afraid that the waiter would be stage frightened, I explained the betting rules to him. To my surprise, the waiter I had randomly called was surprisingly calm. Under the gaze of a group of arrogant second-generation rich kids, he slowly walked to the gambling table. He slowly put his bet on the table. "Can anyone bet?" he asked. While nodded. "Just a kind reminder. The person involved is a mangy dog and very hard to get rid of. Think it over before you bet." The waiter lowered his eyes and didn't respond. He casually took off his watch, threw it into my bet, and pushed it all forward. He said word by word, "I bet that Serena is tired of playing and intends to change to another dog." Instantly, an eerie silence fell around. Deacon, who had been tapping on the table, stopped and slowly raised his head. Some people were even ready to fight, but the waiter seemed unaware of the tense atmosphere. He looked at Deacon a bit impatiently. "What? Are you that dog?" Deacon got angry, and his brows furrowed instantly. But before he could lose his temper, he suddenly turned around as if he had a sudden realization. Then his eyes met mine. There was a long silence, and neither of us said a word. Memories were like long shots in a movie, slowly passing to the old days. The figures leaving school together at the classroom door, the butterflies chasing us on the back seat of the bicycle, and the tiptoes lifted under the willow branches and the gentle and precious touch on the lips. Scenes flashed by one after another and then gradually drifted away. Deacon's throat bobbed. But in the end, he hesitated to speak. I lowered my eyes, turned around, and walked onto the stage. I gave a solemn thank you speech. After that, in front of everyone, I cancelled my engagement with Deacon. The waiter won all the bets. No one in the whole venue had bet that I would break up with Deacon. Deacon himself hadn't expected that one day I would leave him on my own initiative. I said that I was tired of playing and intended to change to another dog. He looked at me angrily and a bit flustered and asked me in a deep voice what had gotten into me. So I really showed him how crazy I could be. In front of everyone, I took out my phone and pressed the play button on the recording. The next second, Exwala's affected voice was loudly broadcast through the speakers on the stage. How stingy. The dress just arrived today. I'll bet it with you too. As if you could wear it even if I bet it to you. Oh, our young master Deacon can't wear it. But he can take it off. Ahahaha. Many people gathered around. The vulgar and lewd laughter against the plain white condolence hall seemed absurd and sad. I straightened my father's portrait. Standing on the high stage, I looked down at Exwala, a beggar who comes to the banquet without giving any gift money. I've won the right to decide whether you take off this dress or not. And a recording is the proof. According to the unwritten rules in the circle, the bet settlement should not leave the gambling table. And those who violate it will be completely spurned by the circle. So I said word by word. Will you take it off yourself? Or should I help you? Many people who love to watch the fun started live streaming. Exwala's face turned pale. And tears immediately welled up in her eyes. She hid behind Deacon while crying. I stared at her coldly. It's not that you can't keep it on. Unless you make everyone who joined in the fun today kneel down and apologize to my father one by one. The situation became very embarrassing for a while. Exwala was crying pitifully, feeling both ashamed and angry as she begged those second-generation rich kids. But how could those proud rich kids come to kneel down? They couldn't wait to see Exwala take off her dress for fun. The voices of people pointing and commenting around forced Exwala to completely break down. Deacon stopped Exwala, hugged her affectionately, frowned tightly, and shouted at me. Serena, is it necessary? I promise you we can talk about the engagement later. It was just a bet for fun. What's wrong with you? I stubbornly stood there, unmoving. On the portrait, my father was looking at Deacon kindly, just like he had done countless times when he had helped Deacon. After a long standoff, when Deacon couldn't do anything about me or the second-generation rich kids, an elder finally came forward to mediate. In the end, Deacon wrote a high-value check to cover Exwala's dress. And those who joined in the fun bowed to apologize. They didn't kneel down. The eye-catching red dress wasn't taken off, but this was the most decent outcome I could get. When I took Deacon's check, Exwala glared at me resentfully. Brother, don't be angry. Let's just think of it as spending money to get rid of a beggar. She probably won't see this much money again in her life. Hearing this, Deacon also looked at the jewelry and smiled. His tone was sarcastic. Serena, is it just for this bunch of second-hand goods? Do you know how many people you've made me offend with your petty behavior? I lowered my head to count the jewelry I had won and didn't reply. Exwala was right. This might be the largest sum of money I could get for the time being. And when converted, it was just enough for Grandma's surgery fee. The second-generation rich kids who bowed passed by me, whispering dirty words and leading one by one. Deacon left with a look of extreme disappointment, following the second-generation rich kids. When everyone had left, the empty auditorium was in a mess. I raised my head, smiled, and held the jewelry as I asked the waiter who had been standing beside me all along. Well, am I amazing? The brim of the waiter's hat was pulled down low, so I couldn't see his expression clearly. I only saw him slightly curl the corners of his mouth and say, Amazing. You're so good at talking. How about we split at 70-30? The waiter didn't respond. He casually handed me a few tissues, signaling me to wipe my face. Only then did I realize that I didn't know when I had started crying. I pretended to be strong and indifferent, wiped my face randomly a couple of times. I picked out a few valuable and easy-to-sell pieces of jewelry and stuffed them into the waiter's hand. Take them. I'm very generous. I didn't want him to think I was pitiful. However, my image of being strong didn't last even a day. The next night, When I was hiding in the hospital stairwell and crying without any dignity, the waiter happened to see me. Grandma died. The surgery fee I had won wasn't enough. When I had finally finished arranging the ashes and went back to the hospital to get the certificates and everything was settled, I finally broke down. I huddled in the corner of the stairs, crying like a drowning dog that nobody wanted. No, I was a drowning dog that nobody wanted. My relatives were gone. My home was sealed. When my snot ran down to my mouth, the waiter was biting a cigarette, standing a few steps above me. He took off his baseball cap, revealing a very good-looking yet intimidating face. There was a light pink scar at the end of his long and narrow eyes. My vulnerability was thus exposed in front of him. The light of the cigarette butt flickered on and off. I stopped crying and sobbed intermittently. When I finally wiped away the last bit of snot, the waiter put out his cigarette. I couldn't find a place to exchange the jewelry you gave me. Could you help me? I opened my mouth, stunned for quite a while. Finally, hadn't proudly and say. I managed to find a relaxed tone. Sure. No problem. I think I managed to force a smile on my face. But after saying that, I blacked out and knew nothing. I had hypoglycemia and fell down the stairs. Later, when I thought about it carefully, I realized that I hadn't eaten for 3 days. When I woke up again, I was in a strange room. It was simple but clean. There was a faint fragrance of Chinese honey locust on the pillow. For a moment, I felt a bit regretful. Why did I have to wake up? It seemed not too bad to follow Dad and Grandma. However, a large patch of sunlight spread so gently on the narrow bed where I was lying. It looked just like my home when I was a child. I sat up and tore off the tape on the back of my hand. Then I heard the sound of tinkling work coming from downstairs. Climbing up to the window, I found that the place where I was located was a 2-story building. Downstairs was a garage. The waiter was wearing work pants, showing his muscular arms, and was removing the door of an off-road vehicle. The glistening beads of sweat, under the sunlight, playfully slipped into his clothes. He seemed to sense something, held the car door, and looked up. The sunlight was just right. So I managed to force a smile and joked, "Working so hard. Why don't I support you?" He didn't smile. He stopped what he was doing and thought about it seriously. Then he asked in all seriousness, "What if I have a big appetite? Will you support me?" I was rendered speechless and then burst out laughing. "Why are you being so serious?" However, the person downstairs stubbornly maintained that posture, waiting for my reply. The aroma of the food wafted from the kitchen. My stomach growled twice. The unknown wildflowers by the window were swayed by the gentle breeze and their buds began to bloom. At that moment, I suddenly felt that this world wasn't completely devoid of interest. So I smiled sheepishly. "I only have the money I won that day. You'd better not eat too much." That day, I blocked all of Deacon's contact information and tried to start a new life. Old acquaintances kept calling to persuade me. They said that I should apologize to Deacon. For the sake of our years of friendship, he wouldn't leave me in a difficult situation and ignore me. I silently blocked them all. I started to help Hunter run his auto repair shop. Hunter said that he wasn't a waiter at all. He happened to be at the hotel on business that day and was stopped by me. He was actually a mechanic. After saying that, he asked me seriously, "Would you still like me even if I'm dirty from work? I'll wash up immediately after work." Whenever it was like this, I would think of the big yellow dog in my grandma's yard. It didn't like to bark. It was fierce. But it would rub against my trouser legs piously. So I unconsciously raised my hand and smoothed his hair. The idle days became long and peaceful. I exchanged all my jewelry for money and decorated Hunter's small 2-story building anew. I raised a little local dog in the yard. I hired 2 more auto repair workers. When Hunter was working, I would sit beside him quietly in a daze or stare at him directly. His bronze-colored skin, with neat and smooth muscle lines, would tense up when he exerted force. And my heart would beat vigorously at those tense moments. Sometimes, Hunter's ears would turn red when I stared at him like that. He would casually put a pair of sunglasses on me. "Have you seen enough?" I shook my head. My fingers stroked his forearm. "They are like the grass breaking through the soil. Looking at them gives me a little courage to live." Hunter stopped moving. A look similar to distress flashed in his eyes. After that, he would deliberately let me help him wipe away the sweat. On his arms, on his forehead, on his waist, even on his abdominal muscles. He would quietly check if I had insomnia at midnight. He would tell me in the morning that the sunshine was nice and life was interesting. I knew that he was afraid that I might be too depressed and do something stupid. I deliberately teased him. Where is it interesting? I don't know. He was stunned for a while and didn't look too happy. He threw down the tools in his hand. Finished work early. Pulled me into the room. Turned around and locked the door. Then he walked over. Took off his gloves and drew his coat aside. I was forced into the corner beside the bed by him. There was nowhere to hide. He looked at me with a deep gaze and asked straightforwardly, "Do you want to sleep with me?" The pale red sunset dyed the room with a hazy and ambiguous light. Hunter's outline was fringed with a soft glow. He looked like a beautiful body coming out of an oil painting. On a whim, I asked, "Do you need to take responsibility?" So Hunter raised his hand and took off his close-fitting vest. "Let's try it first," he said arrogantly. Then he took my hand and put it on his firm chest. And then he moved it downwards. It brushed past his solid waist and abdomen. Slowly, it stopped on the metal buckle of his belt. My heartbeat became noisy. The strong hormone aura was dangerous and exciting. My hands were shaking. Click. The buckle came off. Hunter kissed me fiercely. His rough hands grasped my waist. He was tentative and restrained, yet gradually taking over. Countless shivers. And the surging pleasure made me feel the vitality of life again. That night, Hunter tried every trick he knew, just to make me feel that life was interesting. Early the next morning, when the sunlight climbed onto Hunter's back, his lazy voice came from the pillow. "Are you satisfied?" I guiltily withdrew my admiring gaze. My voice was so hoarse that I couldn't make a sound for a moment. "Not satisfied?" His face turned black instantly. "It turns out that you shouldn't casually arouse a man's competitive spirit." After that day, I never had insomnia again. Those were shameless and carefree days. In the blink of an eye, more than 40 days had passed. I gradually forgot the hurt brought by Deacon. But Deacon started looking for me. I didn't know that Deacon had been restless since the day the morning banquet ended. He was taken to the hotel by Exwalla. Exwalla cried about the fright at the banquet and then threw herself into his arms cockathiously. She said, "This dress is yours now." Deacon wasn't in a good mood. The stubborn face of Serena flashed through his mind. She was usually so delicate and proud, but she was so embarrassing that day. She treasured a bunch of second-hand goods as if they were treasures. Deacon was immersed in an indescribable sour emotion. He attributed it to anger. Seeing that he didn't respond, Exwalla pitifully and coyly took off the dress by herself. "Take it and return it." "Brother. But it's still not enough to cover your check. What should we do?" The lines were clumsy. But her way of seeking favor was surprisingly skillful. Deacon suddenly felt irritable. He leaned back, spread his legs and said casually, "Whatever. You can handle it as you like." Not giving Exwalla the chance to pretend to be reluctant, Exwalla climbed onto him by herself. After letting off steam, Deacon calmed down. He reviewed what had happened that night. When he heard that Exwalla was coming, he had already asked Serena to pay the bill and go back to rest first. She insisted on coming back to make herself uncomfortable. Even if his words were really harsh at that time, she shouldn't have been so uncompromising. Anyway, this time he wanted to make her suffer a little and see the situation clearly. From now on, she couldn't throw her spoiled temper around as she liked. That night, he didn't sleep very well. He inexplicably dreamed of Serena when they were at school. She was very delicate back then. She chased him passionately. But she went on strike when she was on her period. She said that nothing was more important than her period. Even the King of Heaven couldn't make her do anything when her period came. So he didn't see her, his little follower, for 3 days. When he was curious and went to her class, he found that the young lady was huddled in the last row. She was fully armed with a blanket, a warm baby, and a small hand warmer. When she saw him, she changed from her usual arrogant look and unceremoniously ordered him to pass her the water cup. She said that she was too lazy to bend down. It was the first time he had seen such a girl. Her attitude changed really quickly. When he handed her the water cup, he found out that it was filled with a special hot drink. The driver of Serena's family specially drove to the school to deliver it. Twice a day. She wouldn't drink it if it wasn't freshly boiled. So he said, "You're so delicate. What if your family runs out of money?" She casually flirted, "Will you support me?" I don't want you. He maintained his cold and aloof image. She said casually. If you don't want me, I'll go wandering around. I'll trick you out of some money and then go wandering. Deacon woke up with a start. He nervously reached for his phone. There was no message from Serena. When he realized that he was nervous, he smashed his phone. What was there to be aloof about? She wouldn't let him touch her before. This time he must make her apologize. He started to show off by going in and out with Voila. He even took Voila to the hospital where Serena's grandma was for a physical examination. However, he didn't run into Serena by chance. Instead, he got the news that the old lady had passed away. He was stunned. He came to his senses and quickly dialed Serena's number, only to find that he had been blocked. Hunter's auto repair shop was by the roadside at the foot of the mountain, away from the hustle and bustle. We didn't feel bored. We watched the sunrise in the morning and made love at sunset. When I was in a better state, Hunter started to take me into the mountain. We picked mushrooms, caught pheasants, slapped the stream water with our bare feet and watched Hunter fish. Hunter rarely showed a smile. His white teeth and the beautiful curve of his mouth made the sharpness in his eyes seem a bit weaker. Why don't you smile more often? I asked. Hunter was stunned for a moment and waited to the water to come in front of me. Will you always stay here? I smiled and helped him roll up his trouser legs. I have nowhere else to go except here. I didn't notice Hunter's furrowed brows. I never knew what special feelings he had for me. In the afternoon of that day, when Hunter was grilling fish outside the tent, I climbed up a cliff beside it alone. When I opened my arms to feel the wind, I was suddenly pulled by a sudden force and fell onto the huge rock behind me. Hunter hugged me. His eyes red. He growled and bit my shoulder hard, with annoyance and grievance in his voice. You were the one who flirted with me first. After we tried it. You don't want to take responsibility. Damn it. I was stunned for a moment before I realized what was going on belatedly. He thought that I was going to jump off a cliff to commit suicide. After laughing in disbelief, my heart was filled with a sour feeling. I raised my hand and cupped his face. The cliff is so low. Am I crazy to commit suicide here? Hunter looked up in astonishment and was stunned for a long while. For the first time, I saw an embarrassed look on his face. I couldn't help but find it funny. Are you a dog? Your bite hurts so much. Hunter's face darkened again. He buried his head in my chest and bit me again through the clothes. His voice was muffled. Didn't you say that you planned to change to a different dog? I was trembling all over from his bite, and my voice of crying out in pain changed its tone. Hunter didn't plan to stop. He kept igniting the passion and continued his actions as if to vent his anger. My skirt was pushed up to my waist. For the first time, Hunter didn't restrain himself. In the deserted mountain, with the chirping of insects and birds, accompanied by my nervous and low cries for mercy. That day, I realized that all his skills were no match for the brute force without any technique. My voice was intermittent. Hunter. The stone is so hard. He didn't stop his actions. You deserve it. You asked for it. Not only was the stone hard. Everything was hard. Only the corner in my heart was soft. That day, I coaxed Hunter in a flattering way, saying that I would never leave. Hunter believed me. But I didn't know that I would have to break my promise soon. When Deacon learned that Serena's grandma had passed away, he stayed at the hospital for a long time. He asked the medical staff about the details of that day. The more he listened, the tighter his brows became. When he heard someone say that Serena seemed to be carried away from the hospital by a man with a scar at the corner of his eye, his face turned extremely gloomy. Xwella muttered. Even after her whole family died, she still doesn't forget to flirt around. Deacon's emotions exploded at this second. He punched the wall behind Xwella and told her to shut her stinking mouth and get lost. Xwella was stunned. Even Deacon himself couldn't believe it. You know, she was his stepsister who he couldn't be with due to ethics in the past. He had privately flirted with and toyed with this innocent stepsister in order to take revenge on his stepmother. He thought that his debt to her was enough for him to tolerate her doing anything. But he still cursed and drove her away. An indescribable emotion bothered him and made him restless. He knew that the man with a scar at the corner of his eye was probably the one who helped Serena place bets that night. He was sure that Serena must have found that man to anger him. But that man's eyes were like those of a wild dog. Serena, that stupid girl, really shouldn't have been so impulsive. Deacon started to look for her frantically. He was determined to teach her a lesson. The second-generation heirs in the circle teased Deacon. Didn't young Master Deacon say that she was just a mangy dog? Why are you trying so hard to find a dog? Deacon pursed his lips into a straight line. A trained dog that obeys commands. So some more people wanted to watch the fun. The all-powerful second-generation heirs revitalized the brand founded by Serena's father before his death. They recruited professional managers. I knew it was a trap the moment I saw that message. They had dug a pit and were waiting for me to jump into it. However, what they didn't know was that I was planning to get involved in my father's business before his death and thoroughly investigate the matter of bankruptcy. I was just worrying about not having an opportunity when they delivered it right to my door. I was determined to get the position of professional manager. When Hunter knew that I was leaving, he sat in the yard and smoked all night. When he came back, he buried his head behind my neck. His voice was muffled. "Do you have to go?" I was silent. "They'll bully you," he said. I comfortingly rubbed the top of his head. "Don't worry. I'm really capable. When I become the manager, I'll come back and protect you," I said. Hunter didn't say anything more. It was just that starting from the next day, he no longer buried himself in repairing cars. He started going out early and coming back late. Every night when he came back, he was exhausted. There was even one day when he had a serious abrasion on his temple. When I asked him about it, he didn't say a word. Occasionally, when I woke up at night, I would catch him sitting alone in the yard drinking. At that time, I didn't know what kind of torment he was going through. I could only comfort him over and over again that I would come back here sooner or later. Time passed quickly, and soon it was the day of the manager election. I got up early to prepare, but Hunter was nowhere to be seen. His motorcycle was left in the yard, and there was only a 2-word message on his mobile phone for me. "Don't be afraid." I thought he must still be blaming me. Suppressing my disappointment, I went out alone. Those second-generation rich kids whom I had forced to bow before had gone to great lengths for this recruitment. They changed the recruitment format. They put the assessment in the banquet hall and asked the candidates to attend in formal attire. They claimed that it was to test the candidates' social skills. However, the location of the banquet was the same hall where my father's condolence banquet had been held. The candidates had exaggerated large number tags pinned on their clothes. It was clearly a banquet set up as a trap, but I still had to brace myself and go through it. Regardless of their original intentions. As long as they read my recruitment proposal, they would know that my father's brand was still profitable. By then, the businessmen would make the right choice. Before going to the banquet, I conducted a detailed investigation into the brand that my father had revitalized. In a short period of time, the equity had changed hands many times. On the night before the recruitment, the controlling stake had changed hands again, but it hadn't been publicly announced. When I arrived at the banquet hall, the people in the host's seat hadn't shown up yet. While feeling nervous, I saw Deacon again. He was sitting near the host's seat. It seemed that his shareholding ratio should be quite high. He looked at me from a distance, his fingers rubbing the rim of the cup, his expression gloomy and unclear. The second-generation rich kids began to show up one after another. "Oh, isn't this the eldest daughter of the Serena family? You really dare to come," he said, and back and to the people behind him. "Brothers, come on. For the sake of our old friendship, let's interview Miss Serena first, shall we?" There were continuous echoes of agreement. The man in the lead stared at the number tag on my waist. "This candidate no. 2. Listen carefully. The first question for the job application is to bow and apologize to the clients while wearing a low-cut dress to test whether the manager can endure hardships and be flexible. Now, please treat us as clients. Pull down your collar and start bowing." I stared closely at the screen. Just hold on a little longer, and my recruitment video would be played soon. However, I had overestimated the bottom line of these second-generation rich kids. In public, they actually dared to lay hands on me openly. "What? Can't lower your head? Today, I'll help you lower it for you," he said, and was about to press my head down. I dodged. Immediately after that, the person beside me was bumped by me, and he exaggerated he had spilled the whole glass of wine onto my chest. "Oh, why are you so careless?" The one who spoke was ex-Wawa. She stood arrogantly beside those second-generation rich kids. A group of people, with their distorted and malicious devilish faces. It was at this moment that Deacon walked over. He pushed aside the crowd and stood in front of me. Looking down at my disheveled state, he remained silent for a long time. I knew that he was waiting for me to beg him. But how could I do as he wished? On the screen, my recruitment video had already started playing. Seeing that I didn't react, Deacon laughed angrily. What? You've come here, but still can't bring yourself to admit defeat? Beside the host's seat, a few scattered people were gradually attracted by the content on the screen. Deacon frowned tightly and deliberately lowered his voice. Serena, think it over. Are you going to admit defeat to me alone or to this whole group of people? Haven't you suffered enough after all this time? The few people watching the video began to whisper to each other and then nodded one after another. I met Deacon's gaze and raised my eyebrows at him mockingly. Immediately, there were shouts of jeering around. Didn't Deacon say that the dog was tamed? Why is it still biting its master? Finally, Deacon couldn't maintain his calm appearance on the surface. He visibly became angry and approached me through gritted teeth. Serena, don't tell me you're counting on that waiter to save you? I hooligan hired for a few $100. Even if he really came today, what could he do? It would just be one more person to share your humiliation. I had never known that the once gentle and refined Deacon could have such a despicable luck. It really lived up to that saying, when you succeed, the whole world smiles at you. When you fail, the whole world shows its claws to you. I turned my face away in disgust, feeling that the years I had wasted on him were not worth it. Deacon became angry out of shame and forced me to look at him. But Serena, you don't have any relatives left. Even if you're in a humiliating situation, no one will come to accompany you. I sneered in my heart. It was okay for me to be in a humiliating situation alone. A proud and unruly person like Hunter should always stay tough. But just as Deacon finished speaking, the doors of the banquet hall opened from both sides. A group of people dressed elegantly walked in one after another. The one they were surrounding was a familiar figure, with cold and distant eyebrows, a light pink scar, and as he walked, the solid and smooth lines under his suit were faintly visible. Hunter walked towards me in such a sudden and unexpected way. Across the bustling crowd, Hunter and I looked into each other's eyes. Sorry, I'm late, he said. At that instant, tears welled up in my eyes uncontrollably. When the loved one is absent, humiliation is like armor, making one stronger. But when being looked at with affectionate and caring eyes, I just wanted to desperately wipe off the wine stains on my body and hide all my humiliation. My actions irritated Deacon. He suddenly grabbed my wrist. Oh, what a touching scene of a pair of star-crossed lovers. His eyes were red, shining with a paranoid light. Serena, you should know when to stop acting. Don't waste the opportunity and not cherish it. Before he finished speaking, his face was punched to the side. Hunter's speed was astonishingly fast. After throwing that punch, he quickly took off his suit jacket. By the time Deacon straightened up, he had already pulled off his tie and undone his cufflinks. He stretched out his fists and threw another punch. Deacon was directly knocked onto the dining table and had no power to fight back. The dishes were scattered all over the floor, and Deacon was in a terribly disheveled state. As the favored son of heaven, he had never suffered such humiliation before. However, surprisingly, none of his followers dared to step forward to stop Hunter, because everyone saw the special assistant to the president of the Hunter family business following behind Hunter. The Hunter family was at the top of the pyramid. Even a special assistant to the president was someone that people in the circle would curry favor with. And that special assistant was now standing respectfully behind Hunter, picking up the suit, taking the tie. He called Hunter President Hunter. Hunter said, "Sorry, I'm late." The people who had been watching the recruitment video carefully in front of the screen all stood up and said respectfully, "It's not late. It's just right." Deacon struggled to stand up and shouted hysterically, "Damn it. Serena, you're crazy. Do you think that just because you dressed him up nicely, he's really made it big? Do you know what the consequences will be for impersonating someone from the Hunter family?" I nervously looked at Hunter. But I saw Hunter curl the corners of his mouth and smile at me, showing a row of white and nice teeth. "Serena, thanks to your good wishes, I've really made a fortune. Now there's a chance to bully others with power. Do you want it? The same place. The same people. Fate was like a cycle. It put us right back in the middle of it again." Hunter was the eldest son who had left the Hunter family. Not long ago, He had bowed his head to his father and taken over the company's affairs. And my father's brand was the first project he acquired after taking over. Just now, he had obtained absolute control of this company from his father. Deacon rushed towards Hunter several times with his teeth bared, but was kicked back by Hunter each time. No one around dared to say a word. So he called the police. He laughed absurdly and said, "Damn it. Everyone's gone crazy. Someone was impersonating the eldest son of the Hunter family and had deceived everyone." He asked the police to come quickly and arrest the person. Hunter no longer paid attention to the man lying on the ground. He turned around and covered my humiliation with his suit. He hid his heartache in his eyes very well and said with a gentle smile, "I knew you were capable. Many people voted for you after reading your recruitment report. Even if I hadn't come, they would have known the pros and cons. And I didn't tell you before because I wanted to be your hero once. Will you be angry with me?" There was a hint of caution in Hunter's smile, which was completely different from when he was punching violently. I tightened my coat and recalled Hunter's recent actions. Suddenly, everything became clear. According to rumors in the outside world, the eldest son of the Hunter family chose to give up his inheritance and leave home because his father had an affair and his mother died of depression. After many attempts to dissuade him failed, Hunter's father simply brought his mistress and illegitimate child back to the Hunter family to inherit the family business. Years had passed, and the illegitimate child of the Hunter family had already firmly established himself in the Hunter family. There was no longer a place for Hunter in the Hunter family. I remembered those nights when Hunter was drinking alone with a gloomy look, with an abrasion on his forehead and the hand holding the cigarette trembling slightly imperceptibly. In the places I didn't know about, how did he bow his head to his father? Was the injury on his forehead caused by his father? How much nausea did this proud man endure when he said soft words to the person who betrayed his mother? I clearly knew that he didn't tell me because he wasn't sure. The brand's controlling stake had changed hands last night, and Hunter had just obtained full control of this company from his father this morning. Hurrying as fast as he could, he finally arrived in time to save me before I was humiliated, yet he still carefully took care of my self-esteem. I knew that even if those people had read my recruitment video, they wouldn't have chosen me without hesitation. It was Hunter who made them make the final decision. I couldn't help hugging Hunter. I buried my head in his chest and said in a muffled voice, "Why should I blame you? Should I blame you for being too rich now? Being rich means I can bully others with power. What's wrong with that?" Hunter's tense body relaxed. As if everything had settled, he put his arms around me in return. Deacon, let out a low sigh, who had just finished the phone call, finally lost control at this moment. He suddenly stood up and grabbed my hand. "Enough, Serena. Stop putting on an act to annoy me. I just made a bet. Didn't I?" Hunter protected me in his arms and looked at him with a warning look in his eyes. Deacon's eyes gradually became crazy. "Serena. You'd rather bow your head to strangers than to me. What on earth am I to you? I just made a bet for fun. But what about you? The half-eaten box of chocolates is still in my fridge and you've already thrown yourself into the arms of others?" I looked up and asked Hunter, "Is it okay to bully others by taking advantage of one's power?" Hunter nodded. I raised my hand and slapped Deacon across the face. One slap wasn't enough, so I slapped the other side. After slapping him, I looked back at Hunter, and he immediately understood what I meant and nodded again. So I picked up a red wine bottle and poured it over Axwella's head. Before the police arrived, I took revenge on those who had grudges against me. When the police arrived, it was Deacon and Axwella who were taken away. Hunter provided the surveillance footage that showed them making things difficult for me. A group of people were taken to the police station to make statements. And in the end, I got the position of the manager. When the special assistant asked Hunter if he wanted to hold a banquet to celebrate, Hunter said no. He cancelled all the subsequent arrangements, and then turned around and asked me, "Shall we go home?" "Okay. Let's go home." Hunter drove the car very fast. When the car stopped in front of the gate of our small courtyard, he got up and came over to kiss me. His hands were shaking. His voice was also shaking. He said that he was so scared that if he had been a little later, I would have been bullied by them. I responded to him passionately. "You look so handsome in a suit. What's the material of this suit? The outline underneath makes people have wild thoughts." Hunter stopped his actions. He cupped my face and stared deeply at me. "Serena, you were also scared, right? If you're scared, you can say it. With me, You can be vulnerable. You can cry. And you can act coquettously. You don't have to always pretend that you don't care. I was instantly touched by his serious look. Tears started streaming down my face uncontrollably. I buried my face in his neck and let out all the grievances and fears without restraint. For the first time since my father and grandma passed away, I was like a child, telling about my sadness. I was carried upstairs by Hunter. He opened the door with one hand while supporting me, and then gently kissed my eyes affectionately. When he was aroused, the color of the scar at the corner of his eye began to darken. It was on the crease of his double eyelids, red and particularly alluring. In a daze, some long-buried memories suddenly woke up. When I was a child, I knew a boy. He was a neighbor in my grandma's hometown. Whenever I went to my grandma's house during the winter and summer vacations, I would go to find him. He took me to the fields. We caught fish, waded through the water, and picked wild fruits to eat. On summer afternoons, we would sneak out to play while the old people were taking a nap. I had countless clever ideas, and he had countless special skills. Whenever we succeeded in cooperating with each other, we would inevitably get a good beating. In those summers, the wind seemed sweet. However, I got into trouble that summer. It was another time when the old people were taking a nap. We huddled together, each holding half a watermelon and eating while watching Journey to the West. When I saw the fiery eyes and golden pupils of the Monkey King, one of my crazy ideas popped up again at an inappropriate time. I said, "Brother, do you want to be the Monkey King? The kind with fiery eyes and golden pupils?" The boy put down the watermelon and blinked. "Will you be the fairy Ixia?" I hadn't heard of the fairy Ixia. There wasn't such a character in Journey to the West. "If I'm the fairy Ixia, will you be the Monkey King?" The boy nodded. So we found some luminous nail polish and painted it on his double eyelids. He said his eyes hurt a bit. I said, "Brother, bear with it. When it gets dark and the luminous nail polish shines, you'll have fiery eyes and golden pupils." He endured it for a while. And then his upper and lower eyelids stuck together. He said to wipe it with water. So I brought hot water. The boiling hot water from the thermos. When I opened his eyes that day, I was so scared that I burst into tears. His eyeballs were bright red, and his eyelids were bleeding from being pulled. My grandma was awake and by my crying and took him to the hospital. When we got to the hospital, the boy was still covering his eyes and wouldn't let the doctor treat him. He said it was going to be dark soon and not to delay him from practicing his fiery eyes and golden pupils. That boy was Hunter. It's just that his grandma only called him by his nickname back then. Hunter's eyes were bandaged. I was so scared that I had a high fever and was taken back to the city by my father overnight. Later, when I asked about Hunter, Dad just perfunctorily said that everything was okay and told me not to have a psychological burden. After that, Grandma was also taken to the city by Dad. I never dared to go to Grandma's hometown again. Hunter stopped his actions. Seeing the tears in the corner of my eye, he was a bit flustered. "Does it hurt?" I reached out and touched the scar, choking back sobs. My great sage equaling heaven has finally come to save me on the colorful clouds. After Deacon finished making the statement, he had to accept a fact. Hunter was really the eldest son who had left the Hunter family. At that moment, all his dignity was powerless to maintain. When he realized that Serena would never go to his house to eat the remaining half-box of chocolates again, deep unwillingness and remorse hit him violently. The thoughts of making Serena sensible, making her no longer arrogant, and making the aloof flower submit to him seemed ridiculously insignificant compared to losing Serena. Voila, and those young masters were still covering up for each other to deal with the police's inquiries. Deacon suddenly lost control. He had a gloomy face and asked in a cold and stern voice, "Whose idea was it to take Voila to the morning banquet?" No one answered. Voila was so scared by his gloomy look that she took 2 steps back, looking around for help, but no one paid attention to her. Deacon casually grabbed a person and pressed again. Whose idea was it? Someone was unhappy. Anyway, Hemingway, weren't you quite happy about it? Young Master Deacon? Why are you coming to settle scores now that things have gone wrong? Yeah. If you can't afford to play, don't play. You were the one who called her a mangy dog and pretended to dump her. Who would have thought that she climbed up to a higher branch? One wave hadn't subsided when another wave rose. The fight in the police station that day was Dokken against many. Everyone was injured. It was a desperate way of fighting. Finally, having fulfilled my obsession, the police had to draw their guns to separate them. Deacon was covered in injuries and spent 7 days in the detention center. Without the feasting and revelry. Without the toasting and chatting. Without those vain self-esteem and rumors. Deacon faced his inner feelings for the first time. He loved Serena. He had been flustered since she announced that she was going to pursue him. But he had been taught the art of cunning and scheming since childhood. He was afraid that the one who fell in love first would always be at a disadvantage. So he held back. When she didn't come to find him for 3 days, and he went to find her only to be told that she cared more about her period than him, he was even more convinced of this. But he still fell for her. Serena's charming and bold temperament made him unable to resist. He thought that there would always be a chance. The days were long. And there would always be a chance for him to gain the upper hand. So, when Serena's family went bankrupt and her father, who had been so kind to him, passed away, there was much more relief than sadness in his heart. He despicably expected Serena's transformation. Without Serena's father's true love, not allowed to stay out overnight, and without the powerful background of Serena's family, Serena would take off her dress on her own initiative like ex-voila, right? If Serena did the same thing, she would be much more beautiful than ex-voila. But in the end, who would have thought? The waiter Serena randomly picked turned out to be the eldest son of the Hunter family. Thinking of this, Deacon covered his chest and hunched over. He thought of their hands clasped together and the kiss that the man, who looked like a wild dog, left on Serena's forehead. His heart ached. Many beautiful memories of the past flooded into his mind all at once. The most painful thing was that he was sure that Serena had loved him once. And he was also sure that Serena didn't love him anymore. Deacon thought it was unfair. If the waiter was just a waiter, he would never have lost Serena. She couldn't get used to plain food and coarse clothes. Thinking of this, Deacon reignited hope. A major plan took shape in his mind. He was going to team up with the illegitimate son of the Hunter family to bring Hunter back to his original state. Without the affluent life, Serena would come back to him. Hunter began to take over the affairs of the Hunter family. And I also started my career as a professional manager. Every morning, we drove out together. And in the evening, we still returned to the small two-story building. I didn't ask Hunter how he bowed his head to his father. I wanted my beloved to always be carefree and unruly. However, there were always people who didn't know better to break this peace. The next time I met Deacon was downstairs in the company. He stood in front of Hunter and asked in a frivolous tone, "Is the hand of the car mechanic used to holding a signature pen?" Following behind him was Milo, Hunter's half-brother. Milo was smiling as if bathed in spring breeze. "President Duckham, you're joking. You don't know how flexible my brother is. He usually looks fierce, but when he knelt in front of my father, he didn't dare to say a word even when being scolded and beaten like a grandson. That day, Hunter didn't take any action. I did. I slapped Milo. The boy who had been pampered since childhood didn't even know how to fight back. His eyes turned red after being slapped a few times. Hunter stood aside with his arms folded. "Stop crying. Hold it back. Your mother is gone. As the eldest sister-in-law, I'll have plenty of chances to educate you in the future. Just bear with it." I didn't have as good a temper as Hunter. I used all kinds of mean tricks. I hit his knee with mine and he hunched over. I grabbed his hair while hitting and scolding. "Don't make friends with any scumbags. If you please your brother, he might give you something to eat. If you don't learn to be humble, I'll teach you a lesson. Keep your stinking mouth shut in the future. If you dare to make your brother unhappy again, I'll beat you to death." Milo couldn't keep up his nonchalant appearance anymore. He covered his crotch and looked at me in horror. "Hunter, control your wife. Ahaha. It hurts. Be careful or I'll tell Dad when I get home." "Ah, help." Hunter walked over with a smile, kicked Milo away, and then took my hand and pressed me into his arms. "Don't be angry. I'm okay." He gently stroked my hair to comfort me. "It's all over. It's only natural for a son to kneel before his father. Does your hand hurt?" "Yes." I huddled in his arms. My hand hurt. But my heart hurt even more. I knew a child's love for his mother. His mother was driven to death by his father. He would rather be a car mechanic than go back to his father when he was young. One can imagine how intense his hatred was. I was sobbing uncontrollably and wiping my tears on Hunter's clothes. Milo cursed and ran away as if fleeing. The large square was bustling with people. Some employees who were off work began to gather around. I nestled in Hunter's arms as if there was no one else around, while Deacon stood alone on the side, looking desolate. He stared at me quietly. In an instant, his eyes turned red. The previous pride was gone, and his eyes were sad and desperate. "Serena, do you still remember the graduation party? At that time, I got into a fight, and you protected me like this. You were so delicate, but you dared to stand in front of me with a wine bottle in your hand." Deacon's voice began to choke. And for once, he showed his vulnerability in front of others. "I'm sorry. Serena. I'm sorry. But, won't you even give me a chance to correct myself? If you really love me, why won't you give me a single chance?" He drooped his shoulders, leaned against the street lamp, and continued murmuring. "The EPI phallum you planted on the balcony has bloomed. You said you'd call me before it bloomed, but your phone couldn't be reached. I called all night long, until the EPI phallum withered. You still didn't answer. Serena, please give me a chance to make it up to you. As long as you're willing to look back, you'll remember that you love me. You said you wanted me to accompany you to visit Grandma's hometown. I postponed my work and arranged the trip. Serena, as long as you turn around, I'll do whatever you say." More and more people gathered around, pointing and commenting. "Isn't the man crying the president of the Deacon family? He's so humble. How pitiful. He deserves it. Haven't you heard? He set up a gambling game at his V&K's father's funeral. What's so pitiful about a man like that?" I raised my head from Hunter's embrace. Hunter raised his eyebrows and asked me, "Do you need me to leave?" I gave him an annoyed look and pinched his abdominal muscles hard. "You say it nicely. If you really left, I don't know how much trouble I'd have to go through to coax you back at night. Besides, he's just a mangy dog. Why should you leave?" Hunter covered his stomach and laughed inducklented. Deacon's face turned as pale as a sheet. I turned around. "Throw away the chocolates and flowers. Who hasn't done stupid things when they were young? I was blind before and I admit my mistake. Just don't always show up in front of me in the future. Every time you show up, I'll be reminded of the stupid things I did, and I might even think of ways to get rid of you." I took Hunter's arm. "Also, I don't need to go back to Grandma's hometown anymore. The person I was looking for, I've found." Deacon looked at me in disbelief, his eyes changing several times. I thought that with so many complicated thoughts in his mind, this sentence would keep him thinking for a long time and feeling miserable for a long time. As for him drinking until he had a stomach hemorrhage and was hospitalized after knowing the truth, that's another story. That night, I held Hunter's hand and laughed. Hunter asked me, "Did you really think about finding me?" I teased him. "Do you want the truth or a lie?" Hunter was silent. "But I did look for you." When?" "Hunter, tell me when?" Hunter swallowed hard and said with difficulty, "The year you graduated from college. At the party. The party where I stood in front of Deacon." For a moment, all kinds of feelings welled up in my heart. Some thoughts gradually became clear in my mind. "So, at my father's funeral, you didn't go there to deliver something?" Hunter remained silent and helped me fasten my seat belt. "And in the hospital stairwell?" "In the hospital stairwell. It wasn't a chance encounter either? Is that right? Hunter? Say something." Hunter opened the storage box in the car, took out a small box, opened the lid, and handed a beautiful dime and ring to me. "So, will you marry me?" My eyes were blurred with tears, and I couldn't say a word for a long time. Hunter said seriously, "The road ahead may not be so easy. I'm no longer Hunter the mechanic, but Hunter who has come back to scheme and fight for family property." I wiped away the continuous tears and burst into laughter through my tears. "Yes, having fulfilled my obsession. Why not marry you? If I don't like someone, I won't marry him even if he's a mechanic. If I like someone, I'll marry him even if he's a billionaire." Hunter also smiled. What a strange logic. With that, he lowered his head and kissed me. In the second year of our marriage, Hunter's father passed away. When he was in his 70s, he remembered the kindness of his first wife. Out of guilt and recognition of Hunter's ability, he passed on most of the shares in his hands to Hunter. And Milo seemed to have learned his lesson after I beat him up. He didn't dare to mention Hunter's scars when he talked big anymore. The next year, our child was born. As a gift, Hunter gave me a report. More than half of the people who joined in the fun at the condolence banquet went bankrupt. Although Deacon didn't go bankrupt. He was struggling hard to hold on. Hunter kissed my forehead gently. When you finish your maternity leave, use your father's brand to acquire his company. There was an exaggerated retching sound from Milo outside the door. Disgusting. Those who show off their love will die quickly. Hunter smiled and asked me, "Did you beat him up again?" "No. He brought gifts for the child. Just now when you weren't here. He secretly kissed the child several times." Hunter put his arm around me and looked out of the window. The sunlight outside the window was just right, and our scars were gradually healing. The end.